So first of all, I'm very happy to participate of this kind of marathon. I think it's a very, very interesting initiative. And so my first idea was to make a very short introduction about the situation. I have had the luck of participating in some events very recently, and so I have some new, fresh ideas. But the main one regarding the new trends or the current trends in food innovation, most of them have to do not with very, I would say, um, high-tech introductions, that there are some, but most of it, I think that we have to focus on the new paradigm that implies to move forward to a more plant-based diet. And this is something that I would like to discuss with the other members of the panel, if we have a chance to hear their ideas or their impressions regarding this current trend, that I think it's not a fad, it's a real trend, and it's something that is not moved by fashion or something like that. It's something that is moved by the need of developing a more sustainable system, food system, okay? So I would like to share with you, I don't have a presentation. I would like to share just two images that I think make a lot of sense regarding these trends. Let me show you, first of all. Can you see this image?
Yes, so. yes,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is a very nice and clear representation of the whole biomass in the earth. So it's very clear. It was published in an article that I strongly recommend, that was published in 2018 at the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences. So it's a very important article. Here is a graphic representation of the content of this article, in which what they have done is to make a kind of estimation of the whole biomass on Earth, considering one kind of measure, that is the gigatons of carbon that imply each kind of living beings. And what we can see is that about 450 gigatons of carbon are represented by plants. So it's a huge amount of the whole living beings on Earth. It's about 82% of the total quantity of carbon that is linked to the living beings. So it makes a lot of sense that we have to focus regarding our diet, regarding the food production, on the available sources of protein, available sources of calories, and this would come for sure in the future. They will come from plants. The second important source of carbon, the second important source of biomass on Earth, it's bacteria. It's something that we have also to check, and this is something that is also involved in the current trends in nutrition and the current trends in food technology, because we are in some way coming back to some old processes that we have known for thousands of years, but right now we are focusing on them as a more specific way of making new foods and new sources of protein. I'm talking about fermentation. Of course, we have used fermentation for thousands of years for preserving food. We have used fermentation for making wine or making beer. We have used fermentation for making fermented milks. We have used fermentation for making bread. But right now, we can use our knowledge about microbiology and about the fermentation technologies in order to make what we call precision fermentation, in order to make the proteins that we want. And of course, it makes a lot of sense also taking into account that the, the living bacteria are a very huge amount of biomass in the earth. If we check in this image, the big column is plants. This little one, these two cubes, is all animals. So as compared to plants, we can see that all animals, the whole volume of animals is very little. And this brown little here is just a layer, is not even a cube, is the amount of human beings. Another thing that is remarkable is that if we look in detail of these two cubes, we can see that most of the biomass comes from insects, from arthropods and other insects and other kind of arthropods. So this is another potential source of food that we are exploring right now. And there are a lot of projects that are interesting right now on how to use insects and some other arthropods as a food. Another that we already know is fish. We have always seen that the ocean is an important source, but it's something that is quite challenged right now. We all know that it's not the way that we are fishing right now is not sustainable. And the most amazing thing for me is that if we look at the animals, the rest of the animals, cattle, cows, beef, pork, represent just 0.1 gigatons of carbon. So we consider that this is a huge quantity, but actually it's less than half the quantities of worms that are on the Earth's surface. And the other thing that is remarkable and is quite sad is that we have been very efficient on making the other animals disappear. Because, for example, we have 0.1 gigatons of carbon of cattle, different kinds of cattle, but we only have 0.007 gigatons of other wild mammals. So the quantity of cattle is huge as compared to the wild mammals. And we have also been very efficient on killing the birds, on directly or just destroying their ecosystems. So if we consider this, that is very, very clear in terms of the quantities. To me, it's very evident that we have to focus on new sources of protein, new sources of calories, and we have to look on a more plant-based food. So this is the first image I wanted to show you. The second one that has to do also with this one, it's, let me find it. Yeah. If we consider the current use that we make and that we have been making from the past, let's say 5,000 years or 7,000 years or maybe more, we eat only 1% of edible plant species on Earth. So there could be almost 400,000 plants that we, from which we could eat 300,000. So actually using only 1% of the species, about 200 species, is making us not to consider some important sources of food that could be used. And it's even more dramatical if we think that about 90 to 92% of all the calories that we eat come from only 4 species: potatoes, wheat, rice, and some other species that we have domesticated, but don't represent an important or significant part of the whole plant universe. So this is more or less what I wanted to tell you. I have been participating in these events recently. We have some quite amazing things that they have been doing, like cell-based meat and air-grown bacteria, methanogenic bacteria that are able to grow from air, and they can absorb CO2. But I think that there are some easier ways of introducing some plant-based products in our diet. And I think that this is part of the current research, the current innovation, and the future of food.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Sure.
So thank you so much. You're like pointed out one of the maybe the most important things, the fact that first we're not using the resources in a correct way, and we need to find new resources. Yes. If we're going to the end of this slot, but I do have a question for you. What it can be the suggestion you can give to a designer? So someone that does have a background in design and maybe knows less this kind of data. I mean, they need to use those data for their projects, but what kind of suggestion you can give them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the future of food is multidisciplinary first. It's very, very important. We have to consider biologists, botanicists, chemists, food technologists, engineers, chefs, food designers, a lot of people with different points of view that have a lot to add to this search that we are doing right now. Because it's not just looking for new species of plants, for example. Once we have identified them, we have to be able to identify the proteins in them. We have to be able to identify the amino acids in them. And we have to make an appealing food. So it makes a lot of sense that we have to make something multidisciplinary. The other thing is that maybe we should check on some of the things that we have been using, and this is something that is happening right now. For example, we consider hemp as a source of materials, fiber for making textiles. But right now, there are a lot of sources of protein from hemp that could be used for making some plant-based foods, for example. Another example, I live in Valencia. Here in Valencia, it's very famous beverage that is local and is seasonal, that is horchata. Horchata is made from a plant that is called chufa in Valencia, or tiger nut. It's the name in English, tiger nut. That is original from Africa, and actually is being planted. There are crops of tiger nuts in Africa. And it's a very, very good source of proteins, and also some very, very good fatty acids. And so we are using this just for making one kind of beverage, but we could use this for making some very different products. The same happens with lupin. Lupin is a kind of bean that has been used for many, many years, but it's, I would say, infrautilized. We cannot just consider that the use that we have done for some of these species are enough for the potential that they have. And there are companies like ProLupin in Germany, for example, that they are currently using lupin for making dairy-based or dairy-similar products like fermented milks, like spreadable cheeses, or so on. So my recommendation
so
is...
Yeah, please, please go ahead. What is your recommendation?
Yeah, to look around, with new eyes and make multidisciplinary networks in order to develop and discover new sources of protein and calories.
Wonderful. And this is also like something that brings together the beauty and the tasty to the sustainable and the healthy. So this is perfect. If we can combine those four elements together, this is already a great path for the design and food. Thank you so much for your contribution. And
thank you. Very happy to participate.